You are listening to the podcast of the Mathias Corvinus Collegium, the largest talent management institute in Hungary. If you want to know more about our mission, please look up our English website at mcc.hu/en or check out our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter channels. For interesting articles and analysis of our professors, external contributors, and students, look up our knowledge base at corvinec.hu/en.
Welcome everyone to the latest installment of the Fellow Talks podcast series. For the last time, we talked with the first generation of the Budapest Fellows that decided to venture to Hungary. Now we move on to the next generation, and a kind representative of that generation, Kelli Buzzard, is here with us. Kelli, thank you for coming here.
Thank you so much for asking me.
And this is a question that I would like to start with you as well, but with the distinction that you were part of the second generation of the Budapest Fellows in 2021. If you look back at your perception of Hungary at that time, how much different is that from the perception you have about Hungary now?
I have a unique situation because I have been to Hungary several times before this occasion, I know. But it was several years ago, and this is going to date me, but it was 20 years ago. And I was working for an NGO in the Balkans, and it happened to be right during the Kosovo War, so that's how long ago it was. But that fact is neither here nor there to this experience. It was more that our headquarters were here in Budapest at that time. Many places in the region, people living in Central Europe would have their families live here for school in a very safe, very stable environment in Budapest. So it was very common. And you just see these NGOs pop up, or at least their headquarters here. Because of that, I came in and out of town with my team 4 or 5 times that year. And just as a funny aside, thinking back to that time when we had no cell phones, we didn't have, there was no Google Maps to show you where to go, and the Hungarian language is unique and so difficult that even to just go from Budapest, where our headquarters was, into town to maybe go to the baths or go to a hotel and have a cake and a coffee or something was a monumental endeavor for those of us who didn't speak Hungarian. It was inscrutable, like little children with our little card. Okay, get on this bus and walk here, Now, of course, there's so many ways we can do that, negotiate the things. But, so that's all to say that I had some experience several years ago. So I knew in a sense what to expect. In fact, when I learned about the opportunity to come, I jumped at the chance, and all my friends said, "This is totally you." And they were right. But in another way, I'd been here before. I knew a little bit of the city, and I kind of knew where I would like to live and could picture this place and these beautiful buildings and everything. However, a lot has changed, and I think for the better. So there was a question mark in that regard. I had been reading, of course, in the press as a person who would consume conservative media and that sort of thing. I knew that the Hungary has been in the press in terms of pushing back on some of the, I would say, authoritarianism that we see in my country especially, but centered here within the current administration and conservative principles and policies. So I knew in that sense what to expect. So it was kind of a surprise and kind of a not a surprise, and really a great mix for me. So it's been wonderful to live here and to be here. We can talk about that a little bit more in a minute, I guess, but to not just be a tourist, but to live here. And so that's been great. And has made all the difference for me in the world to actually stay here longer than the 10 months.
I think I had the chance to truly see the essence of the program in the last couple of months as we were traveling all across Hungary and as we were watching movies related to Hungarian culture and history. I realized that for myself, for a Hungarian, this program was really giving something new and something very descriptive. For your part, when you were here, which part or which element of the program was one thing that truly made you learn the most about Hungary? What was the most educational or the most insightful component of the program for you?
That's a great question. This program is absolutely unique in that there is a cultural component built in, and it's very important. So to give a little background, we have I really enjoyed the book studies that we did. Once a month, we would get together. I called it book club. We get together with somebody, a learned person, somebody who was an expert in that area, really, or just an enthusiast on the topic. And we read books that were nonfiction, fiction, Hungarian authors writing about Hungary, really important aspects of illuminating aspects of Hungarian culture and history. So we did that. We also saw privately screened Hungarian films, of course, that were subtitled for us. And then we would discuss it with somebody who had, again, an interest in that topic or some sort of a connection. And so we did that once a month. And then we have Hungarian classes, 6 lessons spread out over 3 days a week, which is really intense and wonderful. But the language is a very important part of Hungarian culture and history, and an important part of living here. So there are different things. And then, of course, you mentioned the Discover Hungary trips across Hungary, which I think we all very much, my team really enjoyed, because it was a chance where you didn't have to think about work, get on a van and go, and sometimes an overnight, but usually just a day trip, some lovely town, have a tour, learn about the history, the culture, whatever products, maybe it was a wine country or a wine area, or somewhere in the east of Hungary where there's rich history and some difficult history, but rich history, or Tokaj wine or something, or some sort of a festival or a saint or something that was that we could learn about. And it's so much better to do that on the ground than just reading books. We all love books. Here we are, at least wannabe scholars in this program, but and generally in MCC here. But there's a different kind of a learning when you get out with people and to meet people from towns and villages, and then for them to be so proud to show you their town. A lot of times we'd roll into a place and the mayor would greet us, and it's like, wow, you have TV cameras, It was lovely. So that really did illuminate. And I said this before, and this maybe is a little bit sad, but I would do the program again and again if I could. I would just keep doing it.
Exploring every single piece of land
and
here.
Every book ever written in Hungarian and every film. No, but seriously, it was that fun and that really good, really enriching. It really changed my life. So I'm not afraid to say that. But so yeah, I think that just takes you to the deeper level. And I know the program is designed for that. It is unique to American fellowships for this too. And that's the duration is 10 months and it's fully funded, and it doesn't, it's not about just kind of popping into places or moving around. It's about living here in Budapest as much as one can as a local for 10 months. So it's really phenomenal that way. But there is so much more to learn. I mean, there's wonderful towns we haven't seen, or cities, Sopron, trying to think of other ones, So there's always more to explore, areas around Balaton. And for me, because of my research area, the interests of monasteries and abbeys and that history of even pilgrimage routes. I mean, these are all things now that have been in here in Hungary, but have a broader audience within Europe, of connecting the routes to other places and festivals and holidays and that kind of thing. So it's pretty amazing.
And now that you have embraced all of these things, of course, your program concluded a long time ago, but you're still staying here for some reason.
I'm still here.
You still like this country and us, hopefully. And with the conclusion of your program, I mean, first, what motivated you to stay here, and how did the program help you stay here?
When I applied to the program, I was really between things. I mean, I think a lot of us were in a sense because of the COVID lockdowns that were taking largely around the world. Various regimes were having that happen. And so I sat in my place. I'd just come back from teaching in Hawaii, actually. And I was in Washington State, where I'm from. And I thought to myself, I feel like the walls were closing in a little bit, in the sense that our lives were getting smaller because of being at home and, all this in person, not in-person learning, but online schools and online work and things. And I thought to myself, if I could have a chance to get out and to do something, I would take the opportunity. And really, I just started reading and different blogs and praying about things. And this opportunity came across my path, and I took it. And I knew at that time, tell you all that background to say, I had been kind of primed in my heart. Like, if I know that if I'm going to do this, I'd like to stay if I can, and if I could posture myself in a way that I could be helpful and useful, and I could learn Hungarian and, these different things to become a local if I can, as much as one can, being not from Hungary. So that I came with that posture from the start. not knowing if it was possible. So that just happened to be my place in life. I don't have kids. I don't have a family of my own. So I'm a little bit more mobile in that way. And then I was pretty focused on wanting to learn and really threw myself into the research and publishing part of it, which helps professionally, since I didn't really have a background in that. I had more of teaching and communications and that sort of thing. So yeah, I came with that intent. And so I think sometimes if you're postured that way, if you're thinking those things and trying to do everything you can to open up doors for yourself, that does happen. And that's the case for me. So
it's always lovely to hear your stories. Somehow, whenever you talk about something, you're always so passionate, descriptive, detailed, but really passionate about telling stories. And that's why I love these discussions. What about your Hungarian proficiency now? How confident do you think you are when it comes to talking to Hungarian folks in their native tongue?
Sajnos nem beszélek jól magyarul, de próbálok tanulni magyarul.
Oh, that's great. That's so great.
Well, it's interesting because I threw myself into the Hungarian language learning from the start. I didn't have a background in Hungarian. In fact, during COVID, like so many people, again at home, I thought, I'll try to learn another language. And so I just randomly chose German. I'm like, should have thought of Hungarian, darn it.
Yeah.
Truly, I was like, so I pushed that aside now. I do speak French, but that's not helping me here very much. But anyway, so to say that, I threw myself into it with gusto, and I did some research. This is actually quite depressing, on how many hours it takes for an English speaker to learn to master Hungarian. And it was one of it's an American diplomatic website about, when they train diplomats to come, that kind of thing. And so that's an intensive program, but I was like, show me the hours. It's like thousands, And so I did the math and I thought, well, I need to study at least 2 hours for every hour that I'm in class. I did that for a few months. But there's a point where, it's like you get saturated and you can't shove more into the top because the water needs to soak down to the roots kind of thing, to use a plant metaphor. So I did that. And that did kind of help me get over the jump. In fact, I realized by Christmas time, I'd walk around. I'm like, oh, I think I can understand a little bit what's happening on a billboard, like not just by the pictures, like a child, but by the words. And so that was encouraging. Another thing that I did, just as an aside, at first was I painstakingly learned over and over and over on YouTube the vowels. And so, not that I do them perfectly, but I did them well enough from the start where I would say some of my stock phrases to people at a bus stop and they start talking to me. I'm like, nem, and they're like, oh, da, da, da. I was like, wow, this must be, or it's just very unusual maybe for people to try to learn that way. And so they're very surprised to hear somebody, obviously a non-Hungarian speaker, but trying. So that's all to say that I do hear a lot from Hungarians who are very, very kind about when people try. I want that to be very clear. This is a wonderful country to learn a language because Hungarians are very generous, very kind when someone tries to speak their language. I won't disparage any other cultures where they're not. But some places, it's really difficult to practice because you feel like you're butchering the language and it's a really big deal or something. But here, it's not like that, like any attempts to try. So another thing that I would do to learn, because again, I'm by myself a lot at home, I'm single, I would go to my neighboring Pékség, my bakery. I go to cafes down the street and I would just speak to them in Hungarian. Like we're just talking restaurant talk and, ordering and those very, very simple phrases, but they readily understood that, like, to try to help me. Because one of the things that happens at first, it's so hard that it's difficult to put yourself out there to try because it's just like inscrutable at first. And so I tried to push through that. So that's a lot of details, but to say that I just did a test online the other day and I'm like at A2.2. So that's just still a beginner, but it's a second level beginner. So I can understand, I can read some, I can, I know enough to ask questions when I don't know what's going on. Oh, another thing I do too is I go to a Hungarian church. And so The sermon is in Hungarian. The hymns are in Hungarian and Latin. And so I just threw myself into it that way. And I generally know like what the scriptures are. So kind of what he's talking about, the priest. But so that's helps just to that language to wash over me. I know people, unfortunately, who've been here for 2 decades that can't say more than kasanam or, hello. And to me, that's shocking, but I understand it in a way, but I just can't imagine living. I want to be in the world, in the culture where I'm living, not in my own world somewhere.
No,
if I can, which is not fully, but so.
No, that's really great. And I know that as we were talking about this, there are some things you can say, some things you cannot say, but how do you see your future in Hungary in short term, so in the next couple of years?
Yeah, I'd like to stay. One of the things I was thinking about in like what it is to like to live, in another culture, another place, another country, is there's always tensions between what you're bringing to it, what you're learning. You have to come as a humble person, but you have to be confident enough that somebody wants to hire you, or to have something to bring to the table. Humble in what I don't know about Hungary as I'm writing articles back to American audience about it. It's very humbling because I don't want to get this wrong. I do pass my things by trusted advisors here to make sure I've got the facts right, So I'm telling you that to say that I'm constantly trying to improve that and to make sure that I'm an asset, to an organization and there are a lot of different good think tanks or institutes here that conduct their business in English, generally with translation sometimes into other languages, French or Hungarian. So as I continue to learn Hungarian just for my life, it also will help me to be more valuable, even in an institute where English is the first or the primary language of business. So I do see myself continuing on. Since I've been here, I did the Budapest Fellowship. I did a fellowship in the south of France for a very short time in the summer, and did another short term, 3-month fellowship here in town for another really great organization. And now I'm poised to start another one, if that makes sense. I hope that's going to be long-term and that I can find a place for myself there where I can be of value. And to think of, to come together with the Institute on some longer-term projects that will be good for the level of research they do, the kind of publishing and different talks or roundtable discussions, and to become an asset to them. I love it here, so I'd stick around here if I could probably do something online, but that's not the point though. The point is to be a part of the vibrant life and culture and the conversations here in Budapest. So I'd like to do that. I'm now selling my condominium in Washington State. So
okay.
I'm not stateless, but I am homeless back there. So, and again, I could go back, but I don't have a place to live there now. So that frees me up, but also it's kind of like burning the ships, as we say, Christopher Columbus,
You are truly doing reverse Columbus in some shape or form, I must say.
I'm going to the old world and I'm camped here.
Exactly.
It's one of the oldest cultures in Europe.
And I think for the final question is, what advice would you give to anyone who is not from Hungary? What advice would you give them to understand the country better? Where should they look for? What should they search for? Any tips and tricks?
One of the things I really didn't know about, I've been to many places, and of course, across Europe, I've lived here twice. Well, this is the third time now. The first time in Hungary, though, for any length of time. One of the things that's really surprised me in such a good way is how much Hungarians and Americans are similar. And I know that might sound odd because when you go to a place, and I know you've traveled, you immediately see the differences. This is different and that, and wow, and it kind of assaults you. But once settling into Hungary for me, and what I mean by that is the cultural clasps that we have, the love of family, the love of nation, the love of community, of our Christian, Judeo-Christian, and the Greek and Roman, this Western civilization that we're inheritors of. And freedom. I think particularly for Hungarians, this love of freedom that is very strong. And honestly, I feel like you're beaming back to us, as in America, us being Americans, the beacon of light we have been in the past to America. And I hope that we can grab that light beam, to use that metaphor, because Hungarians have had a very difficult, in many ways, beautiful but difficult history and of become resilient, strong, persistent people who stand against totalitarianism. And frankly, you're not so easily duped by some of these more exotic, modern, novel versions of old lies, of old ideologies that my culture seems to be enamored with now. So what I'm saying there is I just really love, I would ask people to come with that in mind. Most conservatives who come are very much interested. They're interested in researching and learning and bringing what they have. Maybe they've been writing and researching and teaching or wrote a book or something. And so that's why they're invited. But most people are really interested in learning, and I think that's good. I think I would say to anybody, conservative, liberal, or somewhere in between, please don't listen to the New York Times, MSNBC, CNN, and all those. Those have just become very corrupt. I mean, not so much in the past, maybe, but now just do your research yourself. Get a wide variety of input before you come, and just have an open mind to talk to people. Hungarians are, have a real unity of culture, but there's also lots of, dissimilarities that people have in terms of their interests and likes and dislikes, maybe their faith or that sort of thing. So come with an open mind and an open heart, and people here will embrace you. Come humbly to learn, but really to work hard and to give what you can to help build up this. It's like a mighty little nation in Central Europe, that's really holding the line in a lot of ways, really punching above the weight class, as we might say in boxing or something. So let's do all we can to help that effort, Americans who come. So that's what I would say.
Those are beautiful concluding sentences, Kelli. Before I wrap this up, I just want to give a quick shout out to Kelli's friend who's been providing the music for us for this session, because life is hectic and we truly try to provide our audience the most up-to-date information with regards to the program and with regards to the US-Hungarian relations that we try to foster and develop with the Hungary Foundation. And yeah, that was it. Kelli, thank you so much for being here with us, and I hope to talk to you very soon again.
Örülök. Köszönöm.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this MCC podcast episode. For further media content, please look up our English website at mcc.hu/en or look for us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you want to read more by our professors, external contributors, and students, check out our knowledge base at corvinec.hu/en.